Radar on action radar, and you see how huge a system this is. It extends all the way from Ohio down to the Gulf, and behind it, those folks in Minnesota and the Dakotas, on into Wisconsin, going into Michigan, they picked up the snow. No snow. For us, the snow is a show for tonight.
Bay, we are still seeing some effects from this storm system, especially with the winds. Some very strong winds still whipping around the Great Lakes and howling over towards the northeastern corridor. And we still have some wraparound moisture too, some spotty rain, some scattered snow flurries for the western and the northern lakes this morning, and a lot of sloppy weather too up and down the eastern seaboard. Now this low pressure area is dragging a frontal boundary along with it, pretty strong cold front that's dangling southward all the way down towards the Florida Panhandle this morning, and with that a thick canopy of clouds and a lot of messy conditions this morning. Again, you can see the rains lined up and down the east coast from Boston all the way down through Florida. Now, besides that storm system, though, there's another one, too, coming on board across the southwestern states. Here, too, some sloppy roadways this morning with the rains developing across the L.A. basin and some cool rain spreading over through Utah. Our main emphasis, though, continues to be our storm system in the east, and even though it has really lost a lot of its punch, it could still pack kind of a wallop today, and at least for coastal sections of the Carolinas, through the Savannah area, even down to around Jacksonville and Amelia Island, there's a chance for a few strong thunderstorms today because the atmosphere is still quite unstable. We have this much cooler air mass slamming into the relatively warm and humid air across the east, and that will be the perfect breeding ground for some pretty strong thunderstorms, we think. And this storm system, or at least this low pressure area, has had a history of producing some violent weather. Since Monday and Tuesday, we had several reports of severe weather across the nation's midsection. Now, some of these were tornadoes across Kansas and Oklahoma and across the Ohio Valley, but the good vast majority of these severe weather reports were basically the winds. And I think that truly will be the biggest story with this storm system, continues to be the winds. We have had reports of hurricane-force winds the last few days. Very strong winds whipped across the Central Plains states and the Great Lakes yesterday, and those winds are still staying rambunctious this morning. Like around Chicago, latest wind gust around 41 miles per hour. It's even worse though around Buffalo and Niagara Falls. Here we've had some wind gusts between 50 and 60 miles an hour. Right now, gale warnings and storm warnings and lakeshore warnings, too, in effect all around the Great Lakes area for those very strong, vicious winds. Now, the good news, though, we think some of these winds will start to slacken off and ease up a little bit later today as that low continues to lift northward. But until then, strong winds buffeting most of you from Minnesota and Wisconsin through Cleveland. Strong winds, too, around Boston and around New York City, and that pretty much will last for the next several hours or so. Again, ahead of this storm system, we've had incredibly mild air, like Jackson, Kentucky yesterday, up to 73 degrees. Cleveland also set a record high on Tuesday as temperatures climbed into the lower 70s. We're still seeing the surge of very warm air ahead of the storm system, much milder this morning than what it was yesterday morning at this time. But by the same token, in the past 24 hours, things have cooled off dramatically across most of the Great Lakes and the Mississippi Valley and the Plains states. Dramatically colder, especially over the south-central part of the country. You can see that cold air again plunging southward. Right now it's 29 degrees for Goodland, Kansas, down to below the freezing mark for Amarillo and Lubbock, Texas. Bitterly cold air, too, spreading in across the Rockies. But still for the eastern seaboard, temperatures staying relatively mild. When you factor in the winds, though, it really becomes quite brutal and nasty. These wind chills in the single digits and the lower teens around the Great Lakes and the upper Plains states. So it's definitely one of those mornings to bundle the kids up very warmly as they're waiting at the bus stop this morning. As we take a look at what's to happen for the rest of the day, we'll still have those lingering rains for the East Coast, primarily for the morning hours. So again, if you're heading off to one of those Veterans Day ceremonies this morning, you'll need the umbrellas. The good news, though, the rain tapering off as we progress through the afternoon. Stay tuned. We'll have more to say about this big winter storm coming up in a moment.
This program was sponsored by Rayovac Rechargeable Alkaline.
Every day is new. We tell you about the weather right now. How will it affect where you're headed? What about your plans? People count on us to get them through the day. I love that.
Video games don't just blast through your batteries.
More batteries!
They blast through your money. That's why you should arm yours with Rayovac Maximum Alkaline. They pack long-lasting alkaline power but cost less, so you can buy more games.
How about a little one-on-one?
Good morning and thanks for joining us for Storm Watch. I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso. As one storm departs the U.S., another one's dropping down the Pacific coast, bringing rain this morning to Los Angeles. Let's take a look and see what's happening stateside. The crippling storm that blasted its way up through the heartland of America has now peeled off into Canada, and the circulation around that coming in from the west now around the Great Lakes. The low pressure center itself way up here. So this storm has moved north of the border, and in its wake a rush of cool air and dry air coming through the Midwest and taking aim on the East Coast. But it's been a rainy, windy morning up and down the East Coast, especially in the Northeast. Now, as this first storm departs, we're looking at a new storm on the West Coast. Yesterday, we had a lot of snow in Oregon. In the mountains here, we had 1 to 2 feet of snow. Now the system's dropping down through California, and we've seen rain and snow spread its way from Los Angeles to Las Vegas and over into the mountains of southern Utah and southwest Colorado. So mountain snows and valley rains. And in Los Angeles, we've had anywhere from 0.05 to about 1/10 of an inch of rain. Not a lot by most standards, but seeing it's only November, it's a big change in what the weather has been out here after the long, dry season. Now, as we take a look at the satellite picture, we see a beautiful day in progress across the southern United States here. Isn't it gorgeous out there in Dallas and Little Rock and Jackson? Well, enjoy it. What's happening is the storm system moves its way up into Canada here. The upper flow is turning more west to east across the country. So with the flow turning more west to east, the front down here in the Gulf will stop and stall out, and already you can kind of see these cloud elements here pushing up towards South Texas. As this energy in the west moves its way through the southwest, and as the moisture lifts up from the Gulf, we're paving the way for clouds tomorrow and some pretty heavy rains by Friday across Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas. So looks like some trouble is brewing. Right now, though, all is quiet here, but we do see the precipitation coming down through Southern California, Los Angeles in particular, where we do have the rain. Around the Great Lakes, some rain and snow showers here as the flow turns westerly. And in the east, we do see the shield of rain with our front now slipping past Boston and slipping past Raleigh in North Carolina. Thunderstorms today, a shadow of their former selves, and thank heavens for that. Yesterday and the day before, widespread severe thunderstorms with damaging winds, some hail, and tornadoes. Today, just a few strong ones possible right along the immediate coast. If you have a golf game planned, planning on doing some sightseeing around beautiful Charleston or Savannah, well, you might have to reach for the umbrella. It could be a heavy downpour this afternoon. Now, yesterday and the day before, we saw the storms produce some high winds, 60, 70-mile-an-hour winds, knocking down trees and tree limbs and knocking out power to many folks here all the way from North Texas and up into lower Michigan. And there were even a few tornadoes sprinkled in as well. Now, today, we're not looking at severe storms, but still some high winds. Winds still blowing pretty briskly here through the lakes. You can see a wind gust almost 50 miles an hour now around Buffalo, New York. High wind warnings in effect here. Gusty winds over Cape Cod and the islands. Seen some winds gusting here 40 miles an hour during the past hour alone. So still a lot of wind, even though not the extreme winds that we had yesterday, where we had winds gusting over 90 miles an hour parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. And yesterday, with all the winds coming up out of the south, we saw record warmth. Jackson, Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Beckley, and Marquette. Well, today, the reality check, as the front now has slipped its way eastward and the cooler air is rushing in. Temperatures 20 to 25 degrees below what they were yesterday at this time. Chicago, Cincinnati, and southward down to Nashville and Jackson. And that translates into 30s and 40s and low 50s. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, where we saw 60s and 70s early this morning, temperatures have dropped into the 50s with the front passing offshore. And with those winds still brisk around the lakes, very low wind chill values. Minneapolis, it feels like 3, and it feels like 18 in the Chicagoland area. So if you're doing some traveling, problems with the snow will be in the west, but tonight, rain will be changing to snow around the lakes as a secondary shot of cold Arctic air comes in.
The biggest snowstorm of the season so far is history, but folks in the Midwest and Northeast are still buffeted by its gusty winds. Details next on Weather Center.
Do you have trouble driving in the rain? Is the glare unbearable at night? That's why STP created Vision Blade glass treatment. Vision Blade forms an invisible barrier that repels water and virtually eliminates glare. It applies in minutes and it lasts for 6 months. This muddy water sticks to the glass on the untreated side. But with Vision Blade, the dirt and grime sheets away and your view remains clear. And now Vision Blade is available in 2 sizes to meet all drivers' needs. See what you've been missing with Vision Blade.
If you work outside for a living, you should know Walls makes clothes to fit any job. We've been keeping working folks comfortable for over 50 years, with clothes for every season. Because we know working outside isn't a picnic, unless it's lunchtime. Walls, leading the way outdoors.